Yeah, man. Tell me about the music. How long have you been like doing music? How long have you loved music? And like, when did you start doing music on social media?
Yeah. Thanks, bro. So I've been doing music for as long as I can remember. I sang whenever I was very, very young, and then the story goes that whenever I was in middle school, a couple of my buddies played guitar, and we all skateboarded, right? So we would skateboard and play guitar, and one of the guys had the bright idea of starting a band, and they needed a lead singer, and so I was the guy who could sing. Even though I was terribly shy at the time, had zero interest in performing on stage, and was it definitely made me I think nervous just to the thought of it. It also sounded cool. I was like, oh, maybe maybe that's who I am, and so we formed a band called the Suffocating Vegetables, who did AC/DC rock covers and just like any
Wow.
classic rock cover you can think of, we played basically. And you know, strangely enough, I grew up in a very small town called Athens, Texas. About 11,000 people there, Northeast Texas, and it's a very small podunk town that's quite redneck and quite dated in a variety of ways. But somehow there was people who embraced us for doing this. You know what I mean? In our small town, we would play not huge, but small private parties, and we would play at a venue here or there. There was a city called Tyler that was close to us. It's a little bigger that we play shows at too, and just kind of just had a platform, strangely enough. And from there, I got the itch. Didn't write any original songs till I was probably 16, and then once I started writing
Hmm.
original songs, and I was just like, oh wow, you can just make shit out of thin air, and it's fun. I did that, and I would just basically write songs on guitar until I was honestly probably 23, 24. And then for the whole time I was always like, man, these shows that we play, they're so fun, and the people there, they'll sing the words to the songs, and they vibe with everything, but there's nowhere for them to consume them afterwards. And if you listen to our records compared to how we were playing, it just they just didn't translate. You couldn't have the same experience at listening to a song after a show as you would at a show. And so I kind of identified that as an issue and was like, okay, how do you produce? What do you do to actually like songwrite or write songs on, I guess, a computer? And that kind of evolved into me diving into a huge train of what they call digital audio workshops, which are basically Ableton or Logic or Pro Tools, any of these platforms you might have heard of. Basically, you just download them on your computer, and you can make really any music in any genre. And that was fascinating to me, but it was also a step backwards because I was not great at production at the time, so I had to kind of teach myself that and almost reinvent myself, and eventually did a complete 180 from rock and roll, where I was a lead singer of a rock and roll band, which I'd been doing for years, and to do kind of more of the pop and hip hop and genre bending stuff that I do today, I would say. um, and it's been a hell of a journey, but it's been the one thing that has made me happy, and made me feel I was doing what I was supposed to do the whole time. And I don't know that everybody has that, but I think I hope that everyone does deep down, and I think once you find it, it's kind of hard to ignore it.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Yeah, I like to think I feel the same way about movies. I make movies.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm trying to build my name up. Yeah, I'm trying to build my name up as like a podcaster who makes movies. So I just put out a
Badass.
short film a few weeks ago. Yeah, thank you, thank you. I did this short film called Magic Mushroom Fun Time, and I put it out on all the podcasting apps where your music is as well.
Awesome.
So there's a way to to use the same system you use, the same system I use for my podcast for movies. And yeah, man, I'm definitely building that. There's opportunity everywhere on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was curious about how you got into Wavlake, how you got into using this new system to
Yeah.
put out your music, because it's totally different. And did you know about Bitcoin beforehand? What's
Yeah.
what's been that journey for you?
Sure, sure. Well, I gotta ask one more time though. So you dropped just to clarify though before I answer that question.
Yeah.
So you dropped your short film on Wavlake, or you dropped it on the Lightning Network?
Lightning Network, technically, not on Wavlake. But so what I'm saying is, by the same system is your music. Like, so your songs are on Wavlake. You upload it to Wavlake, but they can be found on a bunch of different podcasting apps because of the distribution. And so I did a similar path, but through a different video website.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's awesome. Well, I definitely want to watch it now, and yeah, I hope we can do this again. I know it's kind of just the first time, but I think this is fun. You know, I think it's 100% up my alley. So, how I discovered Bitcoin. So, I had a very unique privilege, I would say, to go to university in New Zealand. So I lived in New Zealand from 2010. So I grew up in a very small town, very sheltered small town, right? And I basically really wanted to go to school out of state. And my dad is a fairly open-minded individual, fairly entrepreneurial individual, and was just like, you know, and also, you know, were hell-bent on me going to school and were willing to cover my education expenses, which I'm, you know, forever grateful for, right? But at the time, I'm 18 or 17, and, you know, applying to, like, University of Colorado, NYU, you know, USC, all these schools that are extremely expensive, and my dad, being conservative, probably wasn't the most excited about me going to some of these, you know, maybe not so conservative schools, particularly Boulder, which I was super interested at the time. And so he suggested to me that I should go to, you know, look at international options. And so I had the opportunity to go to New Zealand and got my degree from the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand, which is on the South Island. So I had some friends that I lived in there at one point. We lived in this, like, basically ex-backpackers, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the backpackers, but it's sort of like a shitty hotel or a shitty motel where they just have like 15 rooms, and, you know, people who are traveling who don't want to spend a lot of money will go and crash there, right? And maybe offer, you know, $20-$30 for a night, right? So there was one that was an ex-backpackers that me and 14 other Kiwis basically moved into. And one of those individuals, his name was Matty. And he's a very, very, very clever individual. He was quite good with tech, quite good with technology. This is 2011. And we're hanging out one day, and he'd been in his room like most of the day. So I like came in there. I was like, "What's going on, dude?" And he was like, "Dude, I think I just discovered this, you know, sensational technology that's going to change all of our wealth system." And I was like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's called Bitcoin." And it was $1.25 at the time. And I was like, "Holy fuck, like what is this?" Right? And of course immediately was like, "This, you're right." Like, you know, I'm a, you know, there's a little bit of naivety, right? Like, I'm 19 years old, not very educated when it comes to computer science or anything like that, right? But I did know that 2008 happened, and my parents worked in real estate, and they had some real hardships that came from 2008. And so anything that was going to kind of rebuild the structure of our financial system, I was like, that sounds dope. Which at the time, like, the narrative was kind of that, but it was really a speculative asset mostly at this time, right? So didn't touch it, but, you know, didn't have really any money to put into it anyway. I was barely, you know, paying my rent, you know, each month.
You didn't have $1? You didn't have $1?
I did. I definitely had $1. So that's the fucked up thing, right? And I think $1.25. I think it was literally probably like $1.25 New Zealand, so it was probably even less than $1. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's a Costco hot dog, dude.
Dude, I know. But I got to be honest about when the first time I saw it, right? So then it went to $8, and at this time, like, I hadn't done really anything risky like that. That just wasn't, you know, I was gonna do music. That was risky enough for me, right? And, like, you know, I studied international business at school, so it's crazy because, like, I knew the opportunity was there, but I just didn't. It just didn't. I didn't do it. You know, I didn't have conviction, and that's something that I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about. You know, and everybody talks about in Bitcoin. But yeah. So then a few months go by, maybe even 6 months go by, and I see it again. It's $8, and so I always laugh because I sent my mom, my dad, my brother, basically everybody I knew who had money. that, look, this is a very speculative asset, but just throw $1,000 at it, please, for the love of God. Throw $1,000 at this, and like, if I'm wrong, I promise you, I'll pay you guys back whenever I get a job, and like I can make my thousand. I promise. You know what I mean? And just fucking 30 email chain back of just all this. What is this trash? Like, not even. They weren't even like that. They were being nice, but they were like, this is speculative. This is ridiculous. Like, I keep my money and whatever. You know what I mean? And so, there's so many buying opportunities, I'm sure, that were available at the time, right? But this is before Ethereum, before anything else, right? It was just Bitcoin. So then I moved to Austin in 2014, right? And 2014 was actually a pretty significant year for Bitcoin. 2013 maybe also, but at 2013, here's really where it messed me up, was that Bitcoin went to like $160 one day. And, a dollar probably was in my budget. $160 was definitely not in my budget, at the time, right? And so I saw $160 Bitcoin, and I was just like, boys, it's over. Like, we missed our shot. Like, it's all over. That was the whole conversation we all had together, right? And one of my buddies, I remember, went and bought one. And I thought he was crazy for buying. I was like, how do you even have $160 to spend on this, right? And then, of course, like 2014 happens. It's sitting in the like 80 mark. I think it probably went down, retraced probably 80%, just like it normally does whenever it hits an all-time high, right? And so I moved to Austin. And then I literally am looking for a job, and the first place that I go apply for is a Bitcoin mining organization in Austin. So I was so close again to getting into Bitcoin, I was starting to make decent money from that point for the next 3 years. Had a pretty decent job in technology sales, and just like an idiot was just like, the thing was, dude, I wouldn't have had conviction. I didn't believe in the technology. I didn't believe in, if it would have gone from 160 to $1,000, I would have been like, whoo, I'm rich. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been such a quick flip at that time. Didn't have conviction. Didn't really understand why it was so important, but knew I thought it was cool, right? You know what I mean? And I was just like, that's a cool technology. Then 2017 happens. I finally, and I would call myself class of 2017 a Bitcoin. That's when I came in. I don't know if you're kind of familiar with that vernacular, class of whatever, but I consider myself class of 2017 for Bitcoin, and bought all kinds of altcoins, speculative trash, just like, just was like literally doing exactly what I shouldn't have been doing. And towards the end of the cycle, I started to realize that Bitcoin was the big daddy. You know what I mean? It was like, and of course there were other speculative assets around, Ethereum, Litecoin was a big one back then. Bitcoin Cash came out. I can remember like all these, ICOs. ICOs were the huge thing, right? And I remember basically I ended up making enough to buy a Bitcoin when it was under 10K. I'd flipped a few thousand into like probably 9,000 and bought Bitcoin around that mark. I think that was kind of like, and that might have been early 2018, mid 2018 when that occurred. And finally it was just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm here, I got my Bitcoin, right? And definitely had a hard time. There were times where I sold a little bit of my full Bitcoin and then would buy it back, right? Just based off of lack of conviction. But I had more conviction at this point now, and I really saw the future. And then I would say when 2020 occurred, that's when it was like, oh my God, like this is forever. And like, not only is it forever, it aligns with all of my core values and beliefs. And it, I think is a direct correlation of a lack of responsibility from our system. I'll call it that. I won't even go into specific things. I think it's just a lack of responsibility. You can't print, if you just continually print dollars, 50 to 100% additionally each year, our dollars will be worth nothing. eventually. It's not pegged to anything. You know, it's so it just kind of, that whole narrative, again, I'll talk a lot about narratives probably on this, but that narrative finally set in with me. And I also had a community around it. I had a few people who also believed in Bitcoin. One individual, his name's Brad, who I kind of brought him in, you know, a little bit, like in terms of it. And now he's not a whale, but he's got a lot of Bitcoin, and he's a firm believer. And, you know, the craziest thing is like, no matter what the dollar amount is, I don't know that he would exchange it for dollars. You know what I mean? Like he's that much of a believer in Bitcoin. And so I still love Bitcoin. I'm still a huge lover of Bitcoin. I will say I'm also into so many other things across, you know, I'd say about 50% of my portfolio, the majority of my wealth is in Bitcoin, more than US dollars. However, I love to dabble in, you know, all the other ecosystems. It's fascinating to me. I think non-fungible tokens will play a role for music in some capacity, even if it's just live events at some point in the future. And so I have a speculative side to me as well that I like to, you know, basically go to the crypto casino and gamble, I suppose, if we're going to be completely honest. But Bitcoin, I have conviction. I don't really have conviction, as much conviction with those items I do with Bitcoin. So long-winded answer, but hopefully that answers it.
No, Bitcoin is a long-winded topic, so it makes sense, you know. And you saw it from the very beginning, so it's cool that you've had that journey of just like understanding, like resonating with the truth of it, and knowing that the system needs to be rebuilt on some sort of strong asset.
Right.
And just you going through that, you know, like that's important for people to hear. So that's really cool. I'm also curious about what like going into the pandemic.
Sure.
I was getting into like NFTs. I was following Gary Vee on that. Yeah. I was getting really big into the NBA Top Shot. I was into like a few other random stuff.
Sure.
What was your reaction to like NFTs, and like everyone just talking about crypto all of a sudden? You know, like you gotta invest everything in it.
It was crazy, dude. I mean, I still, and I see it happening right now again. I don't know if you're dabbling in that, but like these new ecosystems, it's like Solana and Say. It's literally like, it's just taking me back to the times where I was up at 4:00 in the morning on Discord in 2021, you know, like just, you know, dude, just living the life of an NFT degen, basically, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go again, dude. I was sitting when ETH was like less than $2,000, and I was sitting at my laptop when Gary Vee was launching VeeFriends. And I had a bid in I was going to put in a bid for like, I think I actually did have a bid in for half an ETH, and somebody outbid me by like 0.01 or something, you know, very small amount. Right. And I was just like, screw it, whatever, dude. 2 weeks later, it's like, dude, it was such a big miss, but it was like 30 ETH or something. I couldn't even remember, but it was just like such a huge opportunity. And when that happened, I was like, oh my God, like this is so obviously here. And then I just started diving in deeply. I wasn't really early on any of the NFT projects, except for maybe like, there's one called Subducks that I still am a big fan of. Just the artwork and the kind of the story behind it. Definitely not doing, it's had brighter days in terms of floor price than it does right now. But yeah, you know, I saw the PFP side, and that was where I think a lot of people were just, you know, spending their time and energy, and definitely made some good money, but mostly converted it all over to Bitcoin in the end. You know, like I made some money, lost some money throughout that cycle, but it was really just because I wanted to. I have a hard time learning if I'm not like diving in deep. So if like I'm not like understanding why this did this huge, you know, pump overnight, you know, a 10x overnight, or if I'm not understanding why, you know, the technology, like it was just a fascinating human experiment, really, is what it was. And it was just like, I honestly look fondly upon those times. Like, you know, I think, you know, I think NFTs are an all-time low. not financial advice, do your own research. But if you're going to buy an NFT and you have any thought of them coming back on ETH at any point, now's not a bad time to look at them. And yeah, I think, for me, the biggest part is that when the bear market came, I was very aware of how the cycles worked at this point. And I was very aware that the core underlying technology was still going to be around. And I'm very aware that deep fake videos are going to be something that I think, is going to really screw up a lot of things on social media for people, and it's going to be a big narrative over the next few years. And I don't see, whether it's ordinals, whether it's, it could all be on Bitcoin. And in fact, I think that would be awesome. But I ultimately think that blockchain solves so many of these issues. And I think there's also music, I don't know who they are. I don't know how they're doing it, but I would almost guarantee that there are people out there using my music and not giving me any sort of, recognition or financial return for them using my music out there. And that'll all be solved with blockchain, so it doesn't really matter to me which ecosystem it thrives in. I'm here to dabble in all of them at this point, recognizing that Bitcoin's the one that, if Bitcoin doesn't work out, and look, it's everything speculative. I have zero doubt in my soul that Bitcoin will one day, it's only just begun. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've got a long, long way to go. But, I'm here to dabble in all the technology. I love all the technology. I love that we're in this era that is basically giving us a 1999 internet window all over again. And not the bad part of 99, which was the bubble that happened, but the good part, which was that we finally embraced a new technology. Not everybody did. A very small percentage of people did, but they were rewarded heavily for embracing that technology over the coming decades, right? And so... and I'm not going to lie, there's definitely financial sides that I love about it, and being able to make a quick buck. But also it's the underlying... I just like being in the game, I guess is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And I think I sat on the sidelines for a little bit too long in the past. So maybe it's kind of like making up for me sitting in the sidelines and feeling like I had a lot... $10 in Bitcoin at $1.25 would have been pretty sweet. So, recognizing I missed that, whatever. You can either be sad about that your whole life and feel like, it was the one that got away, or you can show up and start spending your time and energy in learning it. And, I would say it's kind of, been a huge part of my life, and I think the other side about NFTs, just to kind of, I guess, put a ribbon on top of this, or a bow on top of this, is that I was a huge Pokemon fan growing up, just absolutely enamored in it. And I think the collectible side of things, I think Pokemon has a long runway also in a bear market right now. But even beyond a speculative asset, it's just, regardless if you want to admit it or not, there's value there. You get attached to these items, right? And I think NFTs are, at least in the 2021 market, that was the iteration that we were seeing, right? And I think eventually, people used to collect vinyl or whatever, you know what I mean? I think that is going to evolve into... It already has. Wavlake, we have Sound XYZ, we have Vault Music, we have all these new organizations that are coming out of the woodworks right now, right? And one of them's going to win. And one of them's become the de facto for crypto with music. And I think anything that's associated with Bitcoin will have a longer shelf life than the rest, regardless if it becomes the de facto or not. And also, more so than ever, I've seen... So I think there's a collectible element, I suppose, to all this stuff. You know what I mean? And I think a lot where... I'm sure there's people who are Bitcoin maxis who watch this show, but I think where a lot of people kind of go wrong there is yeah, you're right. 99% of it's going to fail, but 1% is going to be a pretty large group of companies in the end. You know what I mean? And look, you're right. Maybe they are going to be, most of it's going to be snake oil, but there are a percentage of them that are going to benefit, could very likely benefit an independent artist's career and an independent creator's career. And dude, the stuff that goes on the banks is no different than a record label. You know what I mean? Like, a record label is literally the exact same shit. It's just a bunch of nepotism, mostly, of people getting hired because they know people there, and they don't know the answers. They're just shooting things in the dark, and they're, unfortunately, you know, playing a game where they are gambling with artists' careers and lives. You know what I mean? And it's changing very rapidly, and I think all this technology is going to fundamentally shift it in the long run. So. Anyway.
So tell me how you got involved with Wavlake. Like, what's your understanding of that? Because I've been aware of Wavlake since like the summer of like 2023, summer or like early fall. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but all the music that's on Wavlake can be found in podcasting apps. It's actually distributed similarly as a podcast. So there's this, it's like the complete inverse of an NFT and blockchain. It's open distribution, it's RSS feeds, it's all this. Like, how did you become aware of this one website, first of all?
Be completely honest, man. So I have a shotgun shell approach to all of this right now. So that's kind of, Wavlake became one of those, right? You know, meaning I just think that, like, crypto and music should be tied together, and it will be in a meaningful way over the coming years. Last week, same day that the ETF got approved, I went to a meeting, which was actually the first time I had been to one. They call it the Bitcoin Commons here in Austin. A lot of basically people who, this particular forum was for how small businesses integrate Bitcoin into their basically their balance sheet, and they can start taking Bitcoin for their companies. A company called Zapright, who's based out of Austin, I believe based out of Austin, who hosted it, and just some phenomenal people there who believe in Bitcoin and believe in like the future of Bitcoin. And obviously I've been heating up over, you know, in a bear market, often it becomes sort of like a lone soldier's crawl for me historically, right? I just haven't had, like, I've had a couple friends here or there, but not people that I see on a daily basis every single day who are, don't take this the wrong way, drinking the Kool-Aid. You know, truly believe in the future of Bitcoin. You know what I mean? And truly believe in, you know, the life-changing technology that we have on our hands, right? And so going there, I was very refreshed and had some really cool companies. Like, one was like a rancher who, like, basically has his entire, like, he accepts Bitcoin, and 35 to 40% of his revenue comes from Bitcoin, and he literally sells produce, basically meat, you know, from cows. I think he does, you know, chickens too, like just a farm, basically, you know, a family farm that has been around in East Austin for a really long time. And he's a part of it. And then there's also a company called Crowd Health, which was basically a payer side where they accept Bitcoin, and they're, you know, kind of trying to redefine what the medical insurance company side is, and how, you know, how it can basically, you know, be integrated with a world that aligns with the values that people have with Bitcoin, or Bitcoin holders have. And then there was also like a doctor there who had a practice that they accept Bitcoin for, right? And so they're all talking about their experiences with it. And there was an individual there, his name's John, he goes by the Bitcoin Yogi, who was there, and I was telling him about my music, and he was kind of telling me about his life. He you know, has been a part of Bitcoin for some time, but also is, you know, like, has a family, is like a yoga, does like fitness, does yoga instruction, stuff like that. And he was like, wouldn't stop talking about Wavlake. He just kept bringing up Wavlake. So I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to take this as a sign that I need to go see what Wavlake is. And I went on Wavlake and I started listening, and I was like, wow, like, not only is there some real talent here, like, it feels pretty early. You know, it feels like this is a platform that is, that's backed by Bitcoin. I mean, it's backed by the Lightning Network, and it's only going to grow, in my opinion, because, you know, there's no, like, Bitcoin fans are different than the rest of the fans. You know, like, a Bitcoin fan, somebody who truly believes in Bitcoin, compared to somebody who truly believes in Ethereum or go down to whatever coin you want to, right? Like, they're just different breeds. Like, it's orders of magnitudes greater for conviction for people who hold Bitcoin. And so to see that Wavlake has come and been like, yo, like, we're here to stay, and we've built an environment that, can, like, for me, when I have slowly come to find out that they are fed through other feeds, and they are making it accessible to other platforms so people can leverage them. But I wasn't at first. When I first got on there, I was just like, oh, cool, there's like a chart here, and if people like your music and they, send you Satoshis, cool, I'll climb up the charts. You know what I mean? And then I was just started digging a little bit deeper and trying to really embrace it. And yeah, like, I've only been on there about a week now. But I probably don't truly understand the technology. So I'd love for you to kind of, if you have any other thoughts or things that you want to break down for me, I truly love and appreciate that. But ultimately, I know that it's just a gut feeling that that's where I'm supposed to be, and that, like, there's going to be value here long term, and that, like, I'd be an idiot not to upload my music on the Lightning Network if I had the opportunity to, And up until recently, I just didn't know that was even, like, something that was happening. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of just all hit me at once, I guess.
Yeah, man. I mean, so that's really cool that you've only been on it for a week, because you were like number 5. I only found your song one night because you were number 5 on the chart, and I was like, oh, I like this song. Yeah, man. So like that's definitely, like, it is new. Like, you're super early. Okay. So this is a move. That's definitely smart. You're definitely on it. Yeah, I can go into it because.
Please do.
So this is a side of the internet that's been quieter than the NFTs. Absolutely. It's a totally different vibe than any other company or any other pitch for crypto, because what's going on is, so like, you listen to podcasts, right? I'm guessing you do. Mm-hmm. So there's an individual who, this guy, the inventor of podcasting, he created it back in 2003.
Wow.
And throughout the last 20 some years, he's been doing his own show. He's been involved with just like the infrastructure of a lot of different things. And he realized during the pandemic that Apple was like the de facto podcasting situation. Sure. And why that's dangerous is because of censorship and everything. Whenever you centralize the technology, there's a higher chance of that happening. And he didn't want that to happen. He didn't want podcasting to be centralized and be taken over by big tech. Sure. And so he started like an open source project to strengthen podcasting. Wow. And what that all that means is that he had developers help him create more interoperability with RSS feeds. So the same tech that you use for a blog or for a podcast, he wanted to enhance the ability or the usability of an RSS feed. And he sort of had this vision of, like, all types of media can be an RSS feed and then can be distributed openly. And the whole caveat to all this is like, okay, well, what's the payment? Like, how do you get paid for your work? And because of, and he, Adam Curry's a Bitcoiner. He got into Bitcoin in, like, he was given like 75 Bitcoin in 2013 or something like that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's that guy.
Let's go.
And his story, yeah, dude. Yeah. Now his whole story is crazy because when Bitcoin hit 1,000, he sold like all of it, like most of all of it.
I mean, that's what I'm, dude. And then we didn't know. We had no idea. We did not know what we were doing at that point. Like, nobody, like,
exactly,
didn't have the vision. That's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So he has a similar journey that you had. He sold it. He knew that it was a mistake, and he was just trying to get back into it. Mm-hmm. And he decided to invest heavily during the pandemic when it went down to like $6,000. And then along with that, that's when the project started. That's when he started getting developers with him, and slowly but surely, the whole thing is called modern podcasting or podcasting 2.0, just like as a loose term.
Sure.
And so all the focus in 2020, 2021, most of 2022 was how can we make podcasting stronger. And then it got to a point where they said, okay, I think we have all the little things that we need for a podcast. How can we expand that to a new medium? And like, what's that medium? And everyone focused in on music. And this is when the developers for Wavlake stepped in, and and this is like an open source project. People just from around the world listening to Adam Curry talk, you know, they're just deciding to code something. They're just choosing to help out and volunteer. There were already a bunch of different like modern podcasting apps that were already using this modern tech. And Wavlake came out, and when Wavlake came out, that enabled the artist to upload their music. They essentially became the Bitcoin Spotify, you know?
Got it.
That's
Right.
It's sort of like how I see that.
Just distribution,
But,
basically. They're like, hey, we're going to allow you to distribute so that other people can have access to your music. That's so cool.
Exactly. So, and that all happened, and it's been an evolution of different. I'm not sure if you know anything about like producing a podcast, but you need a hosting company, you need a hosting site to host all your files and to host your media.
Right.
And so what's been going on is there's hosting companies that are opening up, that are allowing artists to upload their songs directly to the hosting site. So you don't have to give a chunk of it to Wavlake. You can have full control of it with your own hosting site.
Interesting.
Because that's the same, that's the same technology as a podcast. Yeah. So, and then during that project, all it is just a Bitcoin wallet. They just plug in the Bitcoin wallet. So Wavlake, all they did was plug in the wallet to your feed. And it's the same situation if you're to have a podcasting host. But the real innovation is that you're able to openly distribute on podcasting apps with the payment system Lightning, with Bitcoin Lightning. And that's not centralized. You know, it's decentralized.
Right.
It's open source. It's open source media. And the reason why, I'm not sure if you saw, you actually got a few hundred Satoshis last week.
I did, yeah.
When I played your song.
So cool.
From Joel W. And that's all because, so in my hosting site, when I was creating my episode, I'm able to just search for your song, and it's just like a little click and add, like just copy paste, and then so it's like it's all RSS feeds connecting to each other, right? So your feed connected to my feed, and then I was able to give you a split of money coming in. And so for the duration of the time that your song plays, so as soon as your song starts and as soon as it ends, that period of time, whenever someone, we call it boosting, whenever someone sends in a boost, you get whatever that split is. And I usually set it to 60%. Other podcasters will give you a different split.
That's
if your
so
song
sick.
is on... Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. And so this is all from Adam Curry, right? Like Adam Curry had this vision. The inventor of podcasting had this vision. And the other side of this whole thing is music podcasting. And so what you have now is it's just like the radio, but it's a podcast. You can play independent music and on a podcast, and you can set it up for the artists to get paid directly. And that's what I did on my podcast last week. Adam Curry does that every week on his music podcast, Boostagram Ball. Wow. So you can reach out to him and try to get your music on that show.
Yeah.
He's totally open for that.
Really?
Okay. And so this is the real new ecosystem, dude. Like big, NFTs are real, blockchain is real. I'm for that, and I see that vision for collectibles and stuff, and for live events and tickets. But in terms of open distribution and the individual having control over their work, in my opinion, it's RSS feeds, and it's this system that we're using right now, Wavlake, and Lightning Network.
And is it all automated? Like, do you basically have or do you have to manually kind of send the payments through at the moment? Like, how does that all work?
All I need to do is link up your wallet. So what I was gonna do, so there was actually. So this is where we get into like splits and money splits. So last week I gave you a 60% split for the duration of your song.
That's amazing.
For this episode, I'm going to be editing it. I'll be playing some of your songs fully.
Awesome.
And so that same scenario will be happening. But along with that, whenever the episode goes back to just us talking, I want to give you like a 30% split. So whenever someone boosts in, and you'll get 30% of that if it's during the moments of us just talking.
That's so
And so
cool.
you'll just need a. Yeah, I just need a Lightning a wallet. That's
Yep.
all you need. You just need a Lightning wallet, and then I copy paste that into my episode in my hosting site, and then that gets distributed to all the modern podcast apps, and they can see my feed, so they have they know what wallet to go to, they know what the percentages are. It's not, I guess it's automated, but it's just the Lightning network.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I see
It's
what
nuts.
you're saying. Yeah, so this is so fascinating, right? Like, and how long has this scene been happening? Since early 2020, or I guess early 2021, probably.
Yeah, so around then, the pandemic is when the project Podcasting 2.0 begun. Music was introduced. They started working on music in this project in 2020, late 2022, 2023.
Oh, so cool. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, man. So there's a whole new rabbit hole to dive into.
Is there any creators on YouTube that I can go and watch who talk about this, or is there maybe not YouTube, maybe in the RSS feed? Would you be able to send me over a couple people that I could kind of get studied up on?
Yeah,
this?
absolutely.
Because
for the whole thing, the first thing I can tell you is there's this guy named Kyron Down. He produces a show called the Value for Value Show.
Right.
And that's a good overview of what the value for value system is, but also he talks about the apps, he talks about the technology, he talks about how an individual can implement it for themselves. That's on, I think if you just look up the value for value in any podcast, I think he does it on YouTube as well.
Okay.
I just don't remember. I think he's on a break right now, so I just don't remember.
Sure.
But Kyron Down, for sure. Look him up. And then just look up any value for value thing, value for value Adam Curry, or look up anything with value for value in Bitcoin in that, because that's sort of the overarching idea.
Yeah, my head's spinning right now a little bit. But I think, but I mean, look, man.
No, it's cool. It's cool, dude. It's crazy.
And this is what I am very I trust my gut. You know what I mean? And I've had to learn that the hard way. I think early 20s. I think just becoming I think it's kind of become part of becoming a man in a lot, or maybe just a decent human being. It doesn't. It's not gender biased, but yeah, I think that is part of embracing who you are. Is, do you trust your gut? And I just knew from the moment that I heard Wavlake that I had to go explore it and see what it is. And it sounds like you're explaining to me why that was. You know what I mean? It's there is a huge opportunity here. And I think the beauty of it is, to me, even beyond money's one thing, and getting actually paid for your it's necessary, right? It's just how, if we're gonna do this as our careers, that's just part of what has to happen, right? But beyond that, man, it's really more about a transparent ecosystem. It's really more about a fair ecosystem. It's really about even this whole thing that I went to last week, right, at the Bitcoin Commons, where I heard about Wavlake. Our values are all aligned. You know what I mean? The doctor and the butcher and the rancher, sorry, and the health insurance company and the guy who put on the event. Ultimately, our values are very similar, which is that the system hasn't done us that greatly, and there's a new way of happening, and it's so cool because I think it's we're reinventing we've reinvented things over and over and over again, but we're starting to actually go in the right direction of what benefits creators. And I think I think any new technology, it's going to take some time, but it's really, really encouraging to, I don't know, just be in, it feels like I'm in the right place at the right time. And I think it just feels right. I don't know how to describe that. It just feels like this is, as soon as I got on Wavelake's website, I was like, okay, wow. This is obviously the UI is dope, and I like the UI, but just even being able to go on there and see other musicians who have dropped exclusive songs on there, and then to see that there's a leaderboard and you can get discovered, and the whole thing is very exciting to me. So I got a lot of research to do, but I think we'll be in touch, dude. I think you'll be able to help guide me through it quite a bit.
Yeah, please message me anytime, because this whole thing, like I'm just chill with it. Like this is a whole new thing. I want more artists to do it.
Yeah.
Me as a filmmaker, I'm the only filmmaker in this system as well. So
I believe it.
I'm sort of like I'm sort of the first one trying to put movies in this system.
So cool.
So I'm sort of running with scissors there. But there is one other artist you should look up.
Okay.
Who's been really capitalizing on all this. Her name is Ainsley Costello.
Okay.
She's in Nashville. She is she's like, she describes herself as pretty punk. That's her vibe.
Cool.
Sort of like an Avril Lavigne type.
Wow.
She's really cool.
Cool.
And she was actually, automatically, right? She has this dope song named Cherry on Top. You got to listen to that. Cherry on Top.
Done.
Ainsley. So Cherry on Top was the first value for value hit. So in August 2023, Ainsley skyrocketed to the charts, and she was like the first artist to really like blow up and to make a splash. And her one song got over 1 million satoshis in just like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So that's the real opportunity. And this whole thing is, so when it comes to like discoverability and leaderboards, like it's good to have those on a website. But the opportunity with this RSS situation and the podcasting apps is you're able, like as an artist, like you're doing it right now. You're on a podcast and I'm playing your music and you're being able to be paid for it. And that's different than if you were to do an interview with like Apple or BBC or any other thing,
For sure.
So it's about it turns into the artist should be engaging with other people, so other humans, podcasters, and people are sharing music and people are sharing ideas, and it's like this is the system, like that's how I view it. And that's I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing. And this year I'm leaning into interviewing more artists. That's why I reached out to you. That's why I was just wanting to do that, because anyone using Wavlake, that they're just experimenting with a new thing. So just trying to get like what is this mind situation? Like how is everyone thinking? How is everyone observing this? And it's totally new thing. Ainsley is like on it. She just did a live concert, and it was her and another artist named Just Loud. Okay. And they did a live show in Nashville, and they actually live streamed the concert on the modern podcasting apps as well. They streamed the concert on the apps, and the two of them made like thousands of dollars, like $3,000 each. I'm pretty sure.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So like in terms of whether it's video, whether it's music, it can handle all of it. Like there's no challenges in live streaming even. I'm sure like live streaming there's probably more complicated than just uploading music or doing a podcast and uploading the podcast afterwards, right? But it sounds like because RSS feeds, like I remember them, right? I can remember the blog era. I can remember trying to get my music on blogs way back in the day and having no idea what I was doing, right? So it's just so interesting that that's like come back full circle. And Adam Curry, I've seen him before. I can't remember exactly where, but I've definitely seen Adam Curry on several different. Maybe Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know. I've definitely seen him on the internet before. And so
he's been on Joe Rogan like twice. Like
that's right, the father of podcasting.
Podfather. That's why he's called the Podfather, because he invented podcasting. That's so where that comes from.
I got a lot of research to do.
It's really interesting.
And sorry to the audience, I'm out of the loop here, guys. I'm like literally, Cole's freaking doing God's work here, teaching me, the way, man. So I apologize for my ignorance. Like I'm being honest, I guess. I'm just being honest.
Man. It's all love, dude. It's all love, dude. No, because the crazy thing is actually, this thing has been so niche. And when Ainsley came in, she's 19. She's like 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason she found out about it was because her and her parents, they were at the Bitcoin Park in Nashville, and Wavlake was there. And that's how they found out about Wavlake. And they were just interested in the technology, interested in being able to post and distribute and have a payment
Yeah.
open source and decentralized. So it started out niche, but you're in that like next wave, you know, like that's what I think is happening. We're getting like that first wave of true artists to see the opportunity and to really like try to go for it, because then it's about, in my view, I think it's about combining it with the social media, combine it with your reels, combine it with your shorts, keep going on podcasts, you know, like, because this episode is going to be on YouTube as well. So people on YouTube are hearing about Wavlake, people on YouTube are hearing about the modern podcasting apps,
and I'm all about
it just
that,
becomes
you know?
this.
I've almost thought about you know, a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but there are, you know, probably somewhere between 50 and 100 musicians who come to me for advice for a certain, you know, how to promote their music, right? And I'm not gonna lie, you know, like I think there's a lot of people out there who just struggle super, super hard with like what is, you know, the next best thing. And, you know, also there's more content created than ever, so there's so many people giving people opinions out there. And, you know, to like, you know, you talk about how iTunes or Apple is the you know, 800-pound gorilla in podcasting, right? Well, Spotify is that for music. Spotify's so much that people won't even like, you know, they'll go from not thinking I'm a musician at all, like basically like, you know, giving me a cold shoulder, to looking at my Spotify monthly listeners and being like, oh, wait, we should collaborate, or we should, you know, do X, Y, and Z, right? And it's just, and I don't even have that, you know, in the overall scheme of things, I don't even have that many. As an independent artist, I do. But like, think about it, dude. Like today I have like 160 some odd thousand monthly listeners on Spotify, right? But I don't know those people. I mean, I know some of them, but like, there's no way for me to develop a relationship with the majority of those individuals. Imagine if 162,000 people like were listening to my music on Wavlake. You know what I mean? Or even just had exposure, whether it through podcast or through a movie that you upload, you know, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if they had exposure to my music that way, like, imagine how much different of a life I would live. I mean, not only from a monetary perspective, but just from a community perspective. And so I think about that, and I think I'm very blessed and very thankful for the opportunities that I've had from a platform like Spotify. But at the end of the day, like, it's technology changes constantly. There's always new opportunities, and if the internet's taught me anything, it's that niches are the way of the future. You know what I mean? It's like there's all these corners of the internet, and I think it's you know, what is the internet? Like, how could you even singly define what the internet is today, right? You couldn't, you know what I mean? And then you put Web3 on top of that, or you put, you know, the Lightning Network on top of that, and I think it's just it's a really promising future that we have here. And, you know, it's the vehicles that we're using today that sort of define what the industry is. I think they could be gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, it's as simple as that. So I'm, but whereas I do not think that this technology, you know, is going to be gone tomorrow. You know, Bitcoin's kind of proven everybody wrong for a long fucking time, and it will continue to do so. You know, so
man.
So anyway, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I think it's key. Bitcoin is key for everything. Bitcoin fixes everything. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you have the viewpoint that Bitcoin can strengthen the banking system, or Bitcoin can strengthen any economy, you know, right now with this system, Bitcoin is strengthening open source distribution. Right. And that's insane. Like, that's the real opportunity.
For sure.
So that it's brand new. So we're just moving slowly, you know, taking it day by day.
For sure, dude.
Now, I wanted to also know about who inspires you as an artist. Like, you went from rock and roll to sort of more pop.
Sure.
Who's influencing you with all this stuff?
Man, I think it's just like, I am a true 90s baby. So I mean, I can I'll go through a lot of influences in particular in a second, but like, I'm a true 90s baby. Whereas like, in the same week where I was listening to, you know, Fall Out Boy or whoever, whoever was like, the awesome rock band back in the early 2000s, or even before that. I had grown up my whole life on hip hop and like old soul records, right? And pop, of course. The first CD I always tell people that I ever got was an Aaron Carter CD, R.I.P. But yeah, I know Aaron Carter CD, dude. And it was, Aaron Carter was like, I mean, his music was good at the time, but it was like, NSYNC or Backstreet Boys' little brother. I can't remember which one, right? But yeah, like Aaron Carter was, and he had it, and so. The singing and the production there was instilled in me at a very young age. I also think I had like a Now 5, that's what we call Hits 5 CD or something like that. So just all this like eclectic group of music that I was listening to: R&B, hip hop, pop, and then rock. Those were kind of like the 4 ranges. But growing up, being like at least for me, as time went on, I got even way, way more into hip hop and way more into rock too. I was making rock music, singer-songwriter, Dave Matthews Band, all these groups kind of I was into everything, right? And I would listen to it just on my iPod. There would be the craziest mix of songs that I would have, right? And I always kind of leaned towards, there's this music that I want to make, this broad horizon of new music, this new era that we're living in, this genre bending that I could see coming, you know what I mean? And especially when I was like in high school, I could really see, and I guess like Kanye and certain people were like doing the singing and rapping, but I wouldn't necessarily call that the true genre bending that I was like, I saw coming, right? I was like, eventually this is going to change, where rappers aren't just going to rap, they're going to sing and rap and play instruments, and it's just going to be like this fusion, right? But I was absolutely terrified of doing, anything that wasn't like me being the lead singer of a rock band, because that was my comfort zone and that's what people identified me as, and that's what I had built my whole like name, livelihood on, really, and so eventually I got over that fear, and I would say particularly when I started producing, I kind of like, started to lean into what do I actually like, and like what kind of music is like innovative to me. Innovation is a big part of it. It's like how I want to make music that like hasn't really been made necessarily before. I'm sure there's similar music to the music that I put out, but like I want to put the Daddy Nat stamp on it. I want it to be, true to who I am, which is an individual, and I didn't want to be defined by just being like a lead singer of a rock band. So, I kind of would say that because that'll make a little more sense when I sprinkle into my biggest influences. But like from a very young age, I think you could obviously say like all those Aaron Carter and the Now 5 hits and all that stuff definitely influenced me. But I would say beyond that, it was really, it evolved into classic rock. So Led Zeppelin played a huge, like, and when I was in probably early 2000s, right? Just Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, all these rock and roll bands. I just fell in love with that. Tom Petty, these just amazing sounds. These people who like, you'd walk into a bar and I'd see all these people older than me singing it and younger people singing it. And it was just like these anthems that were created. And I think there was a lot of anthems created in the classic rock era, right? And then that eventually, alongside, I was also listening to Lil Wayne. I was also listening to Eminem. I was also listening to, these sort of complete opposites, right? And, but I was very private about that for the most part. Unless I was like at a party, it's like, there was, but for the most part, I was like, I loved it, but I was never going to make that type of music, right? And then sort of sometime along the era, I kind of, took a liking to probably like, and some people are going to take this the wrong way too, but like Drake really inspired me in a way, because Drake, early Drake, 2008, 2010 Drake.
Oh dear. Oh my.
I know. It's going to shock a lot of people. But he was doing shit that like nobody else was willing to do, which was making R&B and making hip hop, or making rap, right? And I saw that on top of like, you know, you would have like the Black Keys who were also kind of becoming popular around that time, and they were, you know, not doing the exact same thing that was reinvented the wheel, but I just finally like I loved the Black Keys, but I drew a distinction in my head that I was like, I don't want to just I want to do something different, man. You know, like Tame Impala, another huge group that I was a huge fan of. Like they just yeah, they were reinventing psychedelic music, but they were actually reinventing it. It wasn't just the same old crap. Like, and I don't that's not the right word for it, but it wasn't just the same old thing. You know, it was innovation. And I think because I like so many different music, because everybody that I knew, you know, would listen to, you know, a Biggie song and then, you know, freaking Van Halen. You know what I mean? It was like just the differences in sounds were so often. I just kind of eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I want to bend genres. I want to not be put into a box. You know, I don't want to play the same sounding thing, and that honestly has benefited my career as an independent artist and caused, I would say, probably problems for my career slightly when it came to going the traditional route of like going with a major label, right? If I had just done One Night, which One Night has kind of always been the song of mine that's just kind of, you know, floated to the top and gave me a lot of exposure and really allowed me to do this full time. But that song, if I had just made 5 other songs that were in the same vein of that song, I do think there would have been some benefits from playing the corporate sort of label game. But I just wasn't willing to do that. I wasn't willing to like put out the same type of song again, purely like the inner artist in me. You know what I mean? It was just like I just really didn't want to do that. So that's a long-winded way again of saying like, you know, I really like genre bending. I really like early innovators. I mean, you know, if we're going to people who like really influence my decision making around the genre bending side, I think you could go everybody from, you know, Prince. Tom Petty is a big influence of mine just through and through. It really became about songwriting. You know, it became about like how do you make a good record, and how do you make a record that makes people feel good, and that has nothing to do with genre. You know what I mean? In my opinion, it has everything to do with how the song was written, and you know, I think I have found a happy medium between those two worlds where I'm putting out music that I think when you hear it, it does sound like a Daddy Nat song now, but I also think there's, you know, a few different variations of what I can do, and it allows me to, you know, express myself, I think, fully artistically and not just be boxed into one singular sound. So, you know, there's some entrepreneurialism, I guess, tied into that too, with just not wanting to be stuck in one singular lane and make what I want to make, you know?
Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah, I remember. I feel like we're in the same vein of music. If you were to see my iPod Classic from 2009 or something, you would see Kanye, Lil Wayne. You know, Lil Wayne was on that one rock and roll song, like
That's
"Let
right.
It Rock"
Yes,
or whatever.
That's
yeah,
right.
man. I was listening. I was on repeat all day long, dude, for
that
the longest time
song,
for me.
Dude.
And
and Linkin Park. I gotta be honest. Yeah, Linkin Park and Jay-Z, like that all did heavily influence me.
Oh yeah.
You know, that I'm thinking back.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think it was Blueprint 3. Whenever Empire State of Mind, like I had that on. I had listened to, and then I was getting into Queen. I was getting into Journey, and so when you mentioned the ballads, like I'm like, oh, I really vibe with those ballads. I really like the ballads, and it's so interesting. It's funny how it's interesting how when you look back and you see the different eras of music, or you can even like pick anything, architecture or whatever.
Sure.
It almost seems like in that certain era, there was like nothing else to do, or like there was nowhere else to go. Like it's always like they had to make this style, they had to make this type of movie, this type of song, and it, because they had to, because it sold, because it did something for them. It was and it was because of like it was almost necessary for them to do it. And if they didn't do that, it didn't work. And now I feel like we're in an era where what was once necessary can now be an aesthetic. and now you can combine the aesthetics and you can like just do what you want with that and you can play with that. So you're on the right path, man. I see that because first of all, with this new ecosystem on Wavlake and podcasting 2.0 stuff, like I want more hip hop. I want more pop. I want more blending stuff. Like I want more R&B. Like this is important stuff because the first wave of the music, you know, and I'm not saying the music's bad, but some music was not like for me, like, you know, like I just wasn't resonating with a lot of the music that was being played, you know, and some of it is like specific to Bitcoin, you know, some of it is like specific to a person's faith, some of it is specific to, you know, whatever the person's perspective was, you know, you're getting that independent viewpoint.
Right.
But
and there's a lot of independent rock bands too, you know, like I hear a lot of rock on there too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I know exactly what you're saying.
You're good. Yeah, man, it's just one of those things where I saw how early it was, and I've been waiting for more people like you with the style that you bring to come into play, because you know that's like Ainsley Costello, you know, her song went up because it's like a pop song. It sounds like an Avril Lavigne song. It sounds like something that we would like rock out to in 2006 or something, and like that's why like people want to vibe with you. And people want. There's also like a sense of, I think, just as me as a consumer, like of the music, there's like a sense of familiarity and like a safety with like if something sounds poppy, you know, if something sounds like a little familiar, but then there's like a little twist.
Exactly.
There's a little different.
And
there's a little thing, and yeah, and that's the innovation.
That's exactly right, man. And that's something I really had to learn the hard way personally. Is like writing, you know, hundreds, if not over 1,000 songs. You know, it's like I learned that. You really like you have to like recognize that people want something familiar with a minor twist, and as you build your career you can make that twist a little bit more. You can do some weird stuff eventually, right? But to really draw people in, like for me, I'm from East Texas, right? And I have I don't know if you can hear it, but I have a Southern accent, you know what I mean? And a lot of people will call me out on that all the time. I don't really hear it, but I know I do, right? And forever, I would try to sing songs like I didn't have an accent. You know what I mean? I try to sing them so proper. And then I started to realize that, like, that's who you are. Not only is it who you are, it can also be charming in its own way if done the right way. So it's like, to me, it's blending that love for hip-hop, that love for pop, that love for rock and soul and blues, too, and then fusing it with, you know, who I am, which is somebody who grew up in podunk nowhere, you know, and yeah, I grew up on the internet also. So like, you know, I was in a podunk nowhere on the internet, but like you have to be who you are. And it takes some time sometimes of just trial and error personally. Not everybody. There are certain artists out there who just know exactly who they are super early. It sounds like Ainsley knows, she's 19 years old. Like I didn't know who I was at 19 like that, right? So I commend people who have that, right? There's an artist in Austin that I'm gonna talk about getting on here because I think he will absolutely explode. Named Short Life. He's actually on my song "Wish Me Well," which you might have played. He's like a Spanglish indie trap pop artist or something. You know what I mean? It's like all these different genres, right? And he's from Monterrey, Mexico. He's very authentic to who he is, right? But like, I just think that, and he knows who he is, and he knows what his identity is, he knows what his branding is, and he knows what his music is. And I think all those things, for me, took a bit longer of me kind of turning the knobs and being like, wait, who really am I? You know, and what do I really want? And like, you know, what do I really care about? And how does my music sound? And I think it's always been there, but through trial and error and keep going, it gets me, I don't know, like, you just get a step closer. You know what I mean? Just kind of like you have to experiment sometimes to really like evolve.
Yeah, totally, man. I agree with that, man. I think that's, you got to make yourself a little uncomfortable, you know. And there's like people. It's crazy how like during like the NFT era, people were willing to be uncomfortable and like give their life savings to a JPEG. But at the same time, they were like, they saw an opportunity with it. Right. So it's like, it's just about seeing the opportunity and being okay with being uncomfortable and being okay with
being wrong,
trying to learn something new.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like, and again, I think the beauty of this is beauty of like the Lightning Network and music being on the Lightning Network and accessible through the modern podcasting. I'm saying that right? Modern podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
absolutely.
Through it being accessible is that like the foundation is already guaranteed right. If any of this crypto stuff is going to work out, Bitcoin will be the big daddy. It just is. You know what I mean? It's the one. And so I don't. Some people would consider it risky. I don't think it's risky at all. I think it's just like it eventually was going to happen, and like I think me seeing ordinals was also part of the reason that I got to where I am now, because seeing that people were going on here and speculating like degens on Bitcoin, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, let's just be honest. Like, again, I understand why, but especially if they were coming from another ecosystem into Bitcoin and they wanted to be early here, or if they've just been here forever, and they finally have something to do with their Bitcoin, right? Like, I think, or something more to do with their Bitcoin, be able to spend it easily. Like, I think all those things, like, it's all happened so quickly. It's all happened so freaking quickly, and in a weird way, although I might not have like been able to articulate it a few years ago, I knew that this was the answer. I knew that building on top of Bitcoin, I just didn't think it was going to happen this fast. I thought, there was going to be, maybe not a layer 2, but something within Bitcoin that was going to outshine the rest. And here we are. It's so cool. The beautiful new world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It is a beautiful new world, man. How much time do you have left, by the way? I know you said 90 minutes.
Yeah, I got about 10 minutes left. I can be a little bit late to the next next meeting I have. But
manifest it.
Yeah, right. But I definitely do. I would love, and I don't know kind of what your schedule is, but a couple things. One is I would love to do another podcast with you at some point, just purely because it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think you've got a very interesting background and a very interesting platform and a great personality for podcasting. So this has been a lot of fun. But number 2 is,
thank you.
When will this podcast drop? Because I want to release another song on Wavlake, that day.
Yeah, I was gonna. The original idea was this Sunday.
Okay.
If the song's ready. If it's not ready, I can totally wait to release it it to be ready.
I have something in the catalog I can definitely release. I'm not 100% sure on what it will be at this exact moment in time, but I'll take a look at it and I will make sure that it's uploaded by Sunday.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because what I could do as well is play that new song on the show if you wanted, and give you like a higher split. I'll give you like
60 is awesome.
70% split.
60 is awesome, by the way. If I had people offering me 60 from the get-go on negotiations in the real music industry, bro, it'd be a beautiful thing, dude. 60's great. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Like literally, thank you so much, dude. Like, I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, it's just the system, dude. I want to be a part of a fair system, and looking at this, like I'm able to do that. I'm able to get, I think it's connected to me being like a big tipper. Like I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I like being able to just like I tip my barber close to 50%, just because I like the guy.
Right.
So like I want to do that for like other people that I like, other friends, other artists, other people that are doing good work. So yeah, man, it's totally doable. And I can totally play that song. I can, just make sure that's uploaded so then I can link it up. I just gotta. That's all I need.
That's awesome. I will absolutely do that.
Then we can totally do another podcast. I really don't have a schedule for like the conversations. I know that this year. I wanted to do more musicians. I wanted to speak with more musicians because I did an interview with Ainsley back in August. I did another interview with another musician. The musician I used for my short film, I interviewed him back in September.
Awesome.
And I like those 2 interviews. Like I felt really good, and I got like the best reactions from those. So this year I've just been trying to lean into more. So if I got another, let's do more content.
Let's do it, dude. I would love to. Yeah, I think, podcasting is one of those things where I have tried like years ago in the past to do it myself, or not even really do it myself, do it with a group of other individuals. And it just would completely fall apart for a variety of reasons. not everybody's built to do podcasts, literally, you know what I mean? But it was a good trial and error for like being able to just talk into a microphone and get more comfortable kind of like having a conversation or candid conversation. But I have it on my list to do a lot more podcasting in 2024. So, I'm sure you have other people that you're looking to interview in the short term, but in the long term, I would love to get back on here whenever you want to have me, dude. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, man, I will do that. I actually have a question. What's been your experience with podcasting? Have you produced a podcast before? Do you know how to do that?
So, yes, in certain regards. Like I have gone and set up the camera, had everybody sitting in, a living room space with 4 different microphones and, recorded an hour and a half and then put them out like a few weeks in a row, right? Or maybe a few months in a row, right? And we do it once a week. I would say a lot of it was just like, I do a lot of video editing and I have done a lot of video editing for a long time. So that part was fairly easy to me. The production side was very much so lacking, which is part of the reason that I didn't want to continue to pursue it. Mainly just in like, with like even the setup that I'm in right now or whatever, this is kind of like my office. This is, I think you need something like this. You don't need something like this, but I think in order to have like a group of individuals show up in person and have the lighting right on everybody and do it like the very traditional style of podcasting, I just saw it was a very difficult thing for me to do at scale, I think. You know what I mean? And be consistent with it.
The reason I ask is the reason I asked that is because like I feel like artists, like musicians should like they have an opportunity to do their own podcast as well.
Yeah.
And you can just focus on the audio. Music is only audio.
So true.
So in my opinion, like if you wanted to do it, have more exposure, have more like musicians or other guests on your show.
Yeah.
Just focus on the audio. And then you can also like that's how you can promote your own music. You can say, hey, I'm a musician. I play my own music. I play other musicians' music. Like you can be your own platform for the music. And so like that's the opportunity with the podcast. That's why I brought that up. And I can help you with that if you want help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely on the radar. And I definitely, look, man, like candidly, I would say just uploading to Spotify once a week, which is how I've always thought about podcasting, or even YouTube, once a week, has been just not that appealing. Like it just hasn't been that straight up. It just hasn't been that sexy to me. But being able to do it on this platform, the modern podcasting platform, dude, that's very exciting to me. Also because I think there's just people who want this community to thrive, who want this community to win, and therefore being an early adopter makes a lot of sense. So I could see myself doing a modern podcast, and we'll definitely need your help to be able to do something like that. But I think that's a great idea, man. You might have just recreated the Daddy Nat podcast. Also, I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
For all of you out there
please.
who may be wondering, why does he call himself Daddy? Why is Daddy integrated into his name at all? I'm going to give you a quick story. So, my name is Nathaniel Stewart. I'm doxxed now, I guess. But Nathaniel is my first name, right? I was named after my great-great-grandfather, who went by Nat Curtright. It was actually on my dad's mom's side, so, different last names, right? But Daddy, we all called him Daddy Nat. I called my grandfather Daddy Bob. My dad, whenever I have kids, will be called Daddy David. Just kind of like the way that it's a very southern thing, I suppose. But Daddy Nat is who I was named after, and then there was a Daddy Nat the second who came after him, who like was alive during the Depression and made sure that my family did okay during the Depression, and kind of took care of the family in a lot of ways, and so meant a lot to my family. Obviously, my dad, and then of course I got passed down. Being named after him. And so Daddy Nat is in my lineage. I'm not like a Daddy Yankee thing. It's not just, I do think it is like very jarring. So when people see it, they either have a positive or negative reaction. And I think that's better than just a stale reaction. Personally, you know what I mean. I'd rather it be polarizing than not. But yeah, just so everybody knows, I'm gonna say it here first. It's not just because I like. It's not like a Daddy Yankee thing. It's literally in my lineage. It's who I was named after, and names are really hard. Like, I couldn't even give you the number of names that I've had for bands and aliases and, like rapper names that I've had in the past, right? But I landed on Daddy Nat because it was true to me and, true to my history, true to my lineage. And I'm carrying the torch, for the Daddy Nats. So
I think it works, dude. I like the name. Like, the names are so weird, too. Like, I feel like it's like one of those random things, but it's a really important thing. But it's also, you can be aimless, but you can meet a target as well. Like, and so yeah, man. When I saw your name, I was like, I just saw it as like, okay, hopefully this guy's good. Like, if you have that.
I love that. Yeah, it's a bold name. If you don't believe in what you're putting out, it's a bold name, brother.
Exactly. That's funny, dude.
That is funny.
Well, dude. Nathaniel, Daddy Nat,
Yes,
this has been really cool, dude. Like, thank you so much for being able or just being available and being willing to come onto the show. Like, this is, I love doing these conversations. I've really been enjoying just trying to spread the message of what this new system is, talk to artists who are just barely diving in, man. Like, it's cool that you're innovating. Like, it's really cool that you're innovating and you're just one of the few, I want to be, I'm reading this book right now and they're describing the audacious few. And I feel like you're one of the audacious few, dude. I'm trying to be one of those as well. So,
dude, you are. You certainly are, man. I appreciate you so much, and I, dude, like, even just like the, good faith and like, audacity that you had to reach out to me it shows that you're on the right path, brother. So, like, I think both of us have a very bright future. Hopefully, all on the Lightning Network, and
Yes.
like, dude, like, I think. It's a very exciting time, man. Like, I've been waiting for this. It feels like I've been waiting for this moment for all my life now. It feels like I've been waiting for this opportunity to come in, and it just feels so perfect, dude. I don't know how to describe it any other way. It just normally I wouldn't just say yes to a podcast, but I did with you. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just. Normally, I wouldn't post all this. Yeah, normally I wouldn't be posting all this stuff on Twitter, but I did. And so, like, here we are. And so, to me, this is just a sign to double down and, drop some more music and all, on the Lightning Network, and then furthermore, potentially start a little podcast. So, you got me excited, dude. I feel fired up.
Hey, man, dude. Hell yeah, dude. I'm happy I did that. I didn't expect to do that today. That's cool.
Well, cool, dude. Well, let's I guess chat. We'll chat over X or whatever over the next couple days, and just kind of I'll make sure when the song's uploaded, you let me know when this is uploaded. I'll blast it out on all my platforms, and then definitely going to be leaning into you to learn a few more things about how I can get more integrated in this ecosystem. So, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, man. No, thank you, man. Thank you.